Hello, welcome to this episode of Living Off the Grid in the City. Today I wanted to focus on the challenges of living off the grid, as the title of this show is, in a city. There are many challenges, many hurdles to go through, to go over when living in a city. A city is by its very nature a demanding place, demands a lot of energy, both from people, demands a lot of energy as far as resources go. The houses use a lot of energy compared to suburban or rural homes. Of course, there are exceptions. You may have a mansion or a industry or a plant in a countryside or in a rural area. Of course, that's going to draw a lot more energy than a residential home in the middle of a city. However, by and large, when you look at the whole city, the entire area, it does draw a lot more energy because of the density, because of the amount of work that people do. You have a lot more activity going on in a city than outside of a city. So you are expected to be hooked up to the grid just about anywhere you live within a city, whether it be in a residential home, in a apartment building, or any other accommodations. You are expected to either contribute, pay, or manage the accounts associated with the grid. The grid again being, as I define it, your electrical power, water and sewer service, and your communication and entertainment services, whether it be your cell phone or internet provider or both, even cable, TV. And these things are either required in the case of water, sewer, and electric in most cases, or they are highly encouraged and even coerced to have, such as cable, such as internet, such as your cell phone. Although they may not be mandatory by regulation or law, your cable and internet and cell phone are at times essential enough, or seen as essential enough, for you to be expected to have those and pay for those on a regular basis. For example, for you to find and maintain work, you have to have some sort of communication at your home or outside of work. They may provide you with cell phone. However, you may need email communications. You may need to be reached at your personal phone, whether it be your home phone or personal cell phone at times, etc. So these are the aspects of living in a city. These are some of the aspects and requirements that you are going to likely encounter when living in a city. You are expected, demanded to hook up to first electric power. Let's say you move into an apartment complex or building, and your electric power is likely already turned on for you, and all you really need to do is take over the payments for it, because you don't own the apartment. In most cases, apartments are rented, and you are just another resident on that space. Both the space and the services already included in that space. Even though you pay for them, they are more or less waiting on you and included. This is the case also for the water service and sewer. You really don't have much choice of turning those off without being evicted, being kicked out by your landlord, by your apartment complex manager or management, because they consider that to be unsanitary. They consider that to be dangerous to your health, according to them, to other people's health, and that is a trend that they rather not see spread. That is a trend they rather stamp out quickly, get you out of there. If you are the type that really doesn't need or want electric power or water and sewage service because you think it's abusive, it's an abusive service, it is overpriced, you are given no choice. If you are that type, you're likely to be looked at with suspicion, indifference, distrust, and contempt. Really, people are not used to anyone thinking this way, and it is just not good for their bottom line, so they are likely ready to get rid of you, to push you away, to evict you, or in any way, shape, or form, just remove you from their premises. If not the landlord, if not the property manager, if you happen to be an owner of either a home or an apartment, you will be expected by your local community to hook these services up automatically. When you move into let's say a new home, power equipment is already installed for you, no questions. And the service may be there waiting for you to just take over the account and continue to pay or start paying. That is true for, again, electric, water, and sewage. So those are the challenges, the expectation, the pretty much obligation, the almost mandatory nature of having those services. Those are challenges for anyone trying to live off the grid, live off of those services and abusive services and charges. The expectation is one. Second is also the many challenges that you will encounter when you decide that you don't want those services, rightly so. If you are able to produce those services at a lower cost for you without being part of this monstrous grid where you chip in and everyone benefits. That's what they call benefit. However, it has gotten so corrupted and so insanely loaded and wasteful that it is unrecognizable. It is no longer a service that provides fair, good service for people at a decent cost and affordable rate or cost. It has gotten out of hand. The systems that I'm talking about for electric and water and sewer have gotten so large and powerful and controlling that they are doing just that. They are abusing their customer base, their customers, left and right, treating them like what they are, their servants, their obligatory or obligated contributors without a choice, contributors that are being used and abused to grow the bottom line, the profit margins, the size and control areas of these companies, these private companies in many cases, most cases, and to even line the pockets of not only those in the company, but the company's investors, which are many. These companies are publicly traded, corporations many times, for profit, and they will behave in such a way to where they will attempt to minimize their services while maximize their profits by charging you more, raising the bills, which is always occurring. So there are regulations and ordinances and laws and rules within each community, city, county that prevent you in many cases from legally disconnecting from these services. For example, many communities now adopt the obligatory or mandatory connection and upkeep of your power, electric, and this is the same for water. Citing safety, citing hygiene, citing all kinds of stuff, health, they are able, through lobbying and controlling lawmakers in your area, because of their sheer wealth and power of these companies. They are able to pass these regulations, have their governments pass these regulations, and make you pay for these as an obligation without a choice. So that's a challenge for anyone thinking of getting off these services. Also, there are many technical challenges. Once you are able to finally find a way to disconnect from these services by getting creative, by getting around the system, by taking advantage of any loophole, or by just pretty much throwing up your hands and say forget it, or throwing up parts of your hands or fingers and say forget it, I'm not paying and you won't make me pay. If you are in that stage where you are brave and adamant enough about the situation where you want to not pay at all, and you're in that period where you are still in your home or place of living and you've decided to disconnect, there are many technical challenges to overcome. In a city, especially in a city, a dense city is usually a place where there are several or many, in many cases, tall buildings, trees, for example. You may have very close neighbors. You may live in a complex or building. You may live in a home that's got very little space as far as yard space or terrain or territory or land, very limited land space because of the density and value of the land in that area. So you may not have as many options or choices for systems like solar panels, like wind turbines, or geothermal systems. They may be excruciatingly expensive, prohibitively expensive. They may be even not allowed in many HOAs or homeowners associations, many communities throughout the country. Solar panels, especially wind turbines that are to be installed several dozen feet up in the air, generating noise, are most likely not allowed, not accepted. Even when there are no limitations on those, your neighbors may complain, may chastise you, may isolate you, may reject you because of those systems. I have experienced that myself, where neighbors are at first curious and then they are distrustful of you. They may become even militant and belligerent toward you, especially if you are generating a little bit of noise or some noise with the use of, for example, a wind turbine. So the technical challenges are many. I will discuss those and briefly introduce those here. For example, if you want to use solar energy to power your now off-the-grid place, you have to live in a place where there's sunshine, not only where the sun falls regularly on a daily basis most of the time, but in a place where there's little shadow. In cities, this may be a challenge because of buildings, tall buildings, because you may live in an apartment. That apartment may not face where the sun shines the most. You may live in the side of the building where there's mostly shadow during the day. You may live in a, let's say, first floor of a multi-level building, not allowing you to access the roof. In many cases, buildings' roofs are not accessible by tenants. Even if you have access to it, does not mean that you will have the freedom to install any kind of equipment, like permanently attached or semi-permanently attached, securely attached equipment such as solar panels would require. You would have to bolt those down to the roof area of the building or structure, and that is the ultimate decision of the owner of the building, unless you are extremely lucky to have an owner that will allow that. That is just not an option. Again, you may not live in the side where the sun shines. You may be able to, if you do live in the side of a building, for example, of an apartment building that faces where the sun shines the most. You can put solar panels, deploy them, for example, through windows, for example, on a porch or balcony. You can deploy them like that. They may not be optimally placed. They may not be attached to anything. So they may have to be taken in, for example, at night or during bad weather. They may have to be secured inside of your home. But you can also put them through windows, basically behind a glass window where the light comes through. You may be able to place a solar panel there. Very creatively, you may place it there either permanently or semi-permanently, meaning that you can install it and remove it easily. Of course, it's going to be very limited, the amount of panels that you put in this way, that you install. Only so many panels could fit on your balcony without taking the whole space over. Only so many panels can be installed in windows. They have to be small panels, usually with very little generating power capacity. So you will be limited in the amount of solar energy that you can collect. Likewise with wind turbines, you may not be even allowed to put those anywhere in a property, especially in apartment buildings. You may be very, very lucky to find an apartment building that would allow you to put one, but this is very unlikely. If you live in a home in a city, you have to keep in mind that wind turbines generate noise. They are unsightly for many people. For others, it is the site of progress, ingenuity, forward thinking, and creativity. But for others, it is an unsightly thing that they claim lessens the value of the property in your neighborhood, because people may have a more difficult time to sell the property in that neighborhood because of the unsightly, as they call it, equipment on someone's roof or someone's yard. So wind turbines may not be a choice for you. There may not be enough wind in your area. to generate any significant amount of power. That's a technical challenge. That's actually an environmental challenge, as it is with the sun. You may live in an area where the sun doesn't shine as often or as much to generate any significant energy, especially during the spring and winter months or autumn months. Many areas of the country, especially in the far northern areas of the United States, get very few months of strong and intense sunlight, and they get long winter months with very little sunlight. So that may be a choice only for part of the year in many areas of the country, but very many vast areas of the country do get plenty of sunshine, in many cases too much. For example, the southwest areas of the country, which is a very large swath of land covering the entire states of perhaps Nevada, about half of California, New Mexico, the entire state, big parts or majority of the state of Colorado, some parts of even Idaho, most of the state of Texas gets plenty of sunshine, most of the southwestern states, most of the southeast states, and a very large percentage of the Midwest gets plenty of sunshine on a yearly basis to have solar energy, solar power as a smart and competitive alternative to your conventional fossil fuel based energy.